This is an 82 Jeep CJ7, and we're going to change a U-joint on the other side of that tire. First tip before you take off the tire, before you get the Jeep lifted in the air, loosen the lug nuts on the tire. Make it a heck of a lot easier to pull your tire off. Here are the tools you're going to need for this job. Obviously, you need a jack. That jack is broken. That's the one I like to use, so I ended up using this one. Quick note on safety, use a jack stand. If you use just this jack, what's wrong with this one is it won't hold its position. After about 15 minutes, it'll be bottomed out. You don't want to be under that alone. Use a jack stand in conjunction with that. Here we got our wrench. As it turns out on the Jeep, it's a 9/16 of an inch socket that we're going to use on everything. 7mm Allen wrench to get the brake caliper off, tire iron for the tire lug nuts, some brake cleaner for cleaning things up before you throw the axle back in, obviously your replacement new U-joint, a pair of pliers never hurts, screwdriver you're going to use fairly extensively, an extra socket, which you'll see why, hammer, this cool little tool for pulling the clip off, which you'll see in a bit. Costs $5, $6, $7, very valuable. Grease, and your grease gun. And last but certainly not least, your paper towels. So get the tire popped off, threw it to the front there. Show you my setup here. Use the jack to throw it up, jack stand under the axle. I leave the jack there for redundancy, just for safety's sake. All right, so now we're into the meat of it here. We're going to take everything here off. It's got to come out to pull the axle out so we can get to the U-joint. I start with the brakes, the brake caliper. You're going to start by backing this bolt out. You can see it, I've already backed it out. What you're going to see is not this shiny part, but this rubber boot. And let's see if we can get down to the other one. There's another one right here. Again, I've already backed them out. For me, it was a 7mm Allen wrench. I was hoping it would be standard, not metric, but 1/4 inch was too small, 5/16 was too big. And let's see if we can get a good view here. Once you back those out, this caliper should come off. However, there's going to be pressure on the system right here from, here's the caliper, here's the brake pad. So it's going to be difficult to get off unless you take the pressure off. So I just slide a screwdriver in this slot and push over on it. So I'm pushing up against the brake pad into the caliper, and that moves it over a little bit. Pull the pressure off the caliper, and then you can work the caliper loose. And you don't want to disconnect it because then you've got to bleed your brakes. And that's more of a project that you want. So I just set it over on the leaf spring. Works out well. The brake pads now should slide out. Oh yeah, by the way, no project's complete without a nice little, without drawing blood. Okay, so the brake pads, we're just going to slide those out. Just like so. Same thing on the back side. Pop those off. And by the way, if you're just replacing your brake pads, it's as simple as that. Pop the new ones on, put the caliper back on, you're good to go. Next, we're going to break into the this housing by pulling all of these bolts out, and then we'll pull off the hub and show you what it looks like from there. All right, I've pulled all the bolts out except one. Quick note to make things a little easier. When you throw your wrench on here to first crack the bolts to get them loose, it's going to want to make the whole rotor turn. It's going to make it difficult to get them to come loose. I'll just come up here in the top of my rotor, drop a screwdriver down in there, and then it'll go and catch on the brake I'm not even sure what that's called, piece of brake hardware, then you'll be able to crack it loose with no problem. So take this last bolt out. I like to keep everything together. And come back, pull the hub off. That's what we're looking at there. There we go. Now then, I've usually got always got a space over here where I set things down in the order that I take them off. Let's come back over. Okay. Now we're going to need to pull this clip out with this tool. I've done it with a couple screwdrivers before, and it's a real pain. But with this, there's two holes there. I'm going to slide this in, spread them apart, and it went flying. And again, we'll set this over here so we know what order that came off in. Now, pull this whole piece off. That's what we're left with in there. Again, set that in order. Now from here we've got a washer that we're going to take off. They do make a big socket that will do this, or as you can see, mine has grooves in it where the previous owner had just taken a screwdriver and beat it at an angle, which works out pretty well. So that's what I'm going to do. So I took my screwdriver, set it in there, and I beat it a few times with the hammer, so now it's loose. Now you can see what we're doing here. Just going to take my fingers, spin that out. Again, set it over here in the order that I took it off. Now we've got a big washer in there. That is always fun to, they're fun to pull out, just to get your fingers in there. It's a tight spot. So set that there. Now we've got another large nut, which for me is, as you can see, we can pull it out just with our hands. We did not need to get in there and beat it again. Get that undone. Set it up in our line. And now we're down to, we've got another washer, and then on the other side of that is our bearing. Pull that out. But that should just all come out, the whole rotor assembly now. Okay. On the back side here, you see our other bearings. Sometimes they may want to stay on your spindle, but no, usually the only ones that have trouble falling out, are these. So you've got this bearing and that washer. I'll just leave those in there. Okay, next we're going to pull off these, what do we got, 6 nuts there. That's going to allow us to take off the dust shield. And then we'll pull this piece off, which, again, I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but we'll get to that here in a second. So we got all of the nuts off of the post there. There are washers behind them as well. But from there, sometimes this dust shield will be fixed on there a little bit, but this one came off pretty easy today. Just set that over there. Okay, next we got to get this whole unit here off, which piece goes from here, slides over the axle. Again, not sure the name of it, but we're going to start. The only way to get it off is by getting something in this spot right behind this plate, like this screwdriver, and pounding down in there to be able to pry it off. I also will take a hammer and just hit around this piece just to loosen up the rust bond that has occurred there.